Julia Roberts has long stood as one of the most recognizable faces in global cinema, a symbol of charm, warmth, and emotional authenticity. To millions, she is not just an actress but a feeling, a memory tied to stories that defined entire decades. Her smile, often described as radiant and disarming, became an emblem of comfort for audiences seeking sincerity on screen. Yet the image the world embraced came with a quiet cost. Fame did not simply elevate her, it shaped expectations that demanded consistency, perfection, and emotional availability at all times. From the moment she rose to prominence, she was no longer just a performer, but a public figure expected to remain unchanged, as though time and hardship had no claim on her. Behind that enduring image lies a life shaped by instability, resilience, and deeply personal struggles that rarely made headlines in full. Her journey is not merely one of success, but of adaptation, learning how to exist within a world that continuously projects ideals onto individuals. The narrative of her life moves beyond red carpets and iconic roles into something far more human, a story of loss, reinvention, and quiet strength. This is not simply the story of a Hollywood star, but of a woman who learned to protect her identity while living under constant observation. Childhood shadows, instability beneath idealism. Julia Roberts was born into a family that, from the outside, appeared rooted in creativity and purpose. Her parents were actors who ran an inclusive acting school during a time when such ideals carried social risk. Their work reflected courage and conviction, but within the household, reality was far less stable. Financial struggles and emotional strain created an environment where warmth often gave way to tension. By the age of 4, her parents' marriage had dissolved, leaving a fracture that would quietly shape her understanding of security. Her father's departure created a void that could not be easily filled, while her mother's remarriage introduced new complexities. The household became unpredictable, filled with shifting dynamics and emotional uncertainty. Stability was not something she could rely on. Instead, she learned to observe, adapt, and remain alert to changes in mood and environment. This early instability did more than disrupt her childhood. It trained her in emotional awareness. She learned to read rooms, anticipate conflict, and adjust herself accordingly. These skills, though born from necessity, would later become central to her acting, but at the time they were simply survival mechanisms. Childhood was not defined by carefree exploration, but by careful navigation of emotional terrain. Finding a voice, from silence to expression, communication did not come easily to her in those early years. A stutter made speaking feel exposed and uncertain, adding another layer of difficulty to an already unstable environment. Words became something to approach cautiously, each sentence carrying the risk of embarrassment. School offered little refuge, as differences often became targets for ridicule rather than understanding. Yet within this struggle, a pathway began to form. Acting emerged not as ambition, but as a form of release. On stage, she could step into roles that allowed her to speak freely, unburdened by the constraints she felt in everyday life. Performance gave her structure and confidence, gradually restoring her voice in ways traditional methods could not. This transformation was subtle but profound. Acting became a space where she could process emotions that had no clear outlet elsewhere. It allowed her to reclaim control over expression, turning vulnerability into strength. What began as a coping mechanism slowly evolved into a skill, one that would later define her career. Identity in the spotlight, living as a public projection. As Julia Roberts' fame grew, so did the weight of public projection placed upon her identity. She was no longer simply an actress performing roles. She became a cultural reference point for beauty, romance, and emotional authenticity. Every smile, gesture, and interview was interpreted as part of a larger narrative that the public collectively constructed around her. This transformation is one of the most complex consequences of long-term fame. the gradual separation between a person and their public image. The expectation placed upon her was not only to succeed, but to remain consistent with an idealized version of herself. Aging, change, or emotional distance were often treated as deviations from the image audiences had grown attached to. Yet behind the camera, she remained a human being navigating the same uncertainties, transitions, and personal evolutions as anyone else. The tension between perception and reality became a quiet but constant presence in her life. Rather than resisting entirely or surrendering to it, she learned to navigate this dual existence. Publicly, she fulfilled her professional responsibilities with grace and discipline. Privately, she cultivated boundaries that allowed her to remain grounded. This separation became essential not as escape, but as preservation of self. The discipline of boundaries, choosing silence over exposure as her career matured, Julia Roberts developed a clear understanding of the importance of boundaries. In an industry built on visibility, she made the deliberate choice to limit access to her personal life. This was not withdrawal but intention, a recognition that constant exposure can erode emotional stability over time. She began selecting roles more carefully, stepping away from the expectation of constant presence in the public eye. Instead of chasing visibility, she prioritized sustainability, both emotionally and creatively. This shift allowed her to maintain longevity in an industry that often burns intensely and briefly. Her boundaries extended beyond work. Interviews became more selective, public appearances more measured, and personal details more protected. This discipline was not about secrecy, but about balance, ensuring that her identity was not entirely consumed by her profession. In doing so, she redefined what it meant to be a successful actress in Hollywood. Motherhood as transformation, a shift in perspective. Becoming a mother marked a significant turning point in Julia Roberts' life. It altered her priorities, reshaped her understanding of time, and redefined what success meant on a personal level. The intensity of her career was gradually balanced by the demands and grounding presence of family life. Motherhood introduced a new kind of responsibility, one that existed outside of fame, awards, or public recognition. It required presence, patience, and emotional availability in ways that differed from her professional world. This shift brought clarity, allowing her to step back from the constant momentum of Hollywood and reassess what truly mattered. She became more intentional with her time, choosing to be present in ways that supported stability for her children. Privacy became a guiding principle, not just for herself, but for her family as well. In this role, she was no longer performing for an audience, but building a life that existed outside of it. Financial independence and control. Building security through choice. Julia Roberts' financial success is often viewed through the lens of celebrity wealth, but its foundation lies in discipline and long-term thinking. At the height of her career, she became one of the first actresses to command salaries on par with leading male actors, reshaping industry standards in the process. However, her approach to wealth was never driven by excess. Instead, she focused on control, stability, and long-term security. Rather than relying solely on high-frequency work, she made strategic decisions that allowed her earnings to compound over time. This approach gave her the freedom to step back when needed without compromising stability. Her lifestyle reflects the same philosophy. She avoided unnecessary extravagance, choosing comfort and privacy over display. Real estate decisions were guided by practicality and emotional grounding rather than status. This financial mindset reinforced her independence, ensuring that she remained in control of her choices rather than being driven by necessity. Aging with presence, redefining beauty and time in an industry often defined by youth and appearance. Julia Roberts has navigated aging with a quiet defiance of expectation. Rather than attempting to preserve a fixed image, she has allowed herself to evolve naturally. This acceptance reflects a deeper understanding of identity, one that is not tied to external validation. Her approach to aging is rooted in presence rather than resistance. She continues to work, engage, and appear publicly, but without the pressure to conform to unrealistic standards. This shift has contributed to a broader cultural conversation about beauty, longevity, and authenticity in Hollywood. Rather than disappearing or conforming, she has chosen continuity. Her presence today carries the accumulated experience of decades, reflecting not just success, but endurance. In doing so, she offers a different narrative, one where aging is not decline but continuation. Loss and memory. The father who stayed in absence at the age of 10, Julia experienced a loss that would leave a lasting imprint on her life. Her father passed away from cancer, removing one of the few sources of stability she had known. His absence was not just emotional, but deeply formative, reshaping her understanding of permanence and security. Before his passing, he recorded bedtime stories for her, a simple act that would carry immense emotional weight. These recordings became a source of comfort, allowing her to hold onto his presence even after he was gone. Listening to them, she found moments of stillness in an otherwise unsettled world. This loss did not define her entirely, but it became a quiet undercurrent in her life. It taught her that love and absence can coexist, that connection does not end with physical presence. These lessons would later influence how she approached relationships, grounding her in an understanding of emotional depth that extended beyond surface interactions. The harsh beginning, New York and rejection at 17, Julia moved to New York City with little more than determination and necessity. The city offered opportunity, but it demanded resilience. Winters were unforgiving, finances were tight, and rejection was constant. She attended countless auditions, most of which ended without success. Life during this period was defined by endurance. She shared cramped living spaces, stretched limited resources, and navigated a competitive environment that offered little reassurance. Each rejection added to the uncertainty, yet she continued forward, driven not by certainty of success, but by refusal to give up. This phase of her life was not glamorous. It was foundational. It taught her discipline, patience, and the ability to persist without immediate reward. These lessons would later shape how she approached success, ensuring that it did not define her entirely. Fame and expectation, becoming an icon when success finally arrived, it did so with overwhelming force. Her breakthrough roles catapulted her into global recognition, transforming her into a symbol of romance and relatability. Audiences connected with her authenticity, and her image became deeply ingrained in popular culture. However, this success came with an unspoken contract. The public began to expect consistency, not just in her performances, but in her persona. She was no longer just an individual, she was an idea that needed to be maintained. This pressure created a subtle tension between who she was and who she was expected to be. Navigating this space required careful balance. She embraced her work while learning to set boundaries, understanding that visibility without control could become overwhelming. This awareness marked the beginning of a more deliberate approach to her career and personal life. Love and fracture. Searching for stability, her personal relationships often unfolded under intense public scrutiny, adding complexity to already delicate situations. Moments that might have remained private became widely discussed, turning personal experiences into public narratives. Despite these challenges, she continued to seek connection. Relationships came and went, each leaving its own imprint. Some offered comfort, others revealed limitations, but all contributed to her understanding of herself. Rather than retreating entirely, she chose to remain open to experience. This decision reflected resilience, not in avoiding pain, but in continuing to engage with life despite it. Family and reconnection, healing old wounds over time, family dynamics that had once been strained began to shift. Distance and misunderstanding gradually gave way to moments of reconnection. These changes were not dramatic or immediate, but they reflected a willingness to move forward. Motherhood played a significant role in this transformation. It brought new perspective, allowing her to approach relationships with greater patience and understanding. The presence of her children created opportunities for healing that had once seemed unlikely. These experiences reinforced an important truth. Healing is not about erasing the past, but about learning to live alongside it. A life redefined, privacy, balance, and choice. As her career matured, Julia Roberts began to redefine success on her own terms. She became more selective with her work, prioritizing quality over quantity and choosing roles that aligned with her evolving perspective. Her personal life also reflected this shift. She built a stable family environment, emphasizing privacy and intentional living. Rather than embracing constant visibility, she chose to step back, allowing space for a more grounded existence. This approach extended to her financial decisions as well. She focused on sustainability rather than excess, ensuring long-term security rather than short-term display. Endurance and meaning, a life authored with intention. What ultimately defines Julia Roberts is not just her success, but her ability to navigate life with intention. She has faced loss, pressure, and change. Yet she has consistently chosen to move forward without losing herself in the process. Her story is not about perfection or permanence. It is about adaptation, resilience, and the quiet strength required to remain authentic in a world that often demands otherwise. Conclusion: protecting what matters most. Julia Roberts' journey offers a perspective that extends beyond fame. It speaks to the importance of protecting one's inner life, of choosing authenticity over expectation, and of building a life that feels genuine rather than performative. Her legacy is not just in the roles she has played, but in the way she has lived carefully, deliberately, and with an understanding that true fulfillment comes not from being seen, but from being grounded